We all wonder where we're going to live when we get older.
Multiple generations of people to live under the same roof, harmoniously, each with their own sense of territory.
And who we're going to live with.
When I was back in Toronto, I had a whole group of girlfriends. We always used to talk about how we would get a great big house and we would all live together.
Well, I could still do that.
These Zoomers are offering up new answers to old questions.
So as a prototype, it would be interesting for me to build a tiny house and live in it for a bit. My closet.
On today's episode, Full House. There's new home construction happening all across Canada, but how much of that is being built for us to age in place as we get older? Once older homes like this ubiquitous Vancouver special were designed for multi-generational living, with private rooms and grandma suites.
But several decades of open concept architecture and the construction of too many one-bedroom condos has left fewer options for large families. So, what are we doing about it? In Vancouver, one architecture team has attempted to bridge the gap between modern design and multi-generational living.
Because I'm curious to know how 3 generations can live in a single family lot.
This is a purpose-built home for a family to live in through multiple generations for over 100 years, and so it does have some unique features.
From the outside, it's really modern, really clean. Show me in. Why don't I follow you? Because I don't know where I'm going.
Welcome.
Thank you. Ideally, it's built for how many humans?
Well, there are 5 full bedrooms in the house, and the way that the house is designed, those bedrooms can be configured to be adapted in a couple of different layouts.
I lived with a grandmother. That's my upbringing. It was very natural for us to care for our grandmother. She lived with us and I saw the benefit, but to not live in a topography of housing that allows us to do so was really tough. And I do think design is a method that we can start to show that it could be different. And so Full House is a little bit of opening that discussion again.
Multi-generational living is not a new concept, but it's one that is only now being re-embraced in Canada. The amount of multi-generational housing in Canada has increased by 25% in the last decade.
So the timing of doing Full House was really at a peak of caring for my mother. So, you know, they almost lost their home. We had to downsize them.
This feature, the light on the leaves.
Yeah, the courtyard atrium is a central organizing feature in the house. One of the challenges when designing a house on a wide lot is how to get light deep into the center of a floor plan. In this case, we were able to design the floor plan around a central atrium that is open air and extends across the 2 upper floors.
This house speaks wellness to me. It's very calming.
When you actually look at the areas people use, intimate spaces are really important.
Yeah, we all need that cradle, right?
Yeah.
I'll follow you. Go ahead. Oh, there's the atrium. Holy cow. Whoa, the treetops.
Yeah, so as the trees grow even taller, this is going to be a remarkable experience of sitting in the foliage, experiencing the light coming in directly and reflecting in.
Oh, a bird. Oh my God, wait, there's a bird that just flew in. He just flew right into the atrium and flew, like he knows the place. Yeah. He's a regular. So how many floors in total?
The garden suite, the main floor, the second floor, and then the rooftop.
And then the rooftop. So big dinner parties happen here?
You know, supplementary to having 2 full kitchens, the idea is that not necessarily every space has to be oversized. So by having this space that services both units, they could collectively have the full 2-family households up here. And so that's kind of a nice balance throughout the house. Often you'll see homes try to dedicate a space for just one function. And in here, a lot of the spaces can be used in many different ways.
Yeah, so you're not maximizing the square footage if you just pigeonhole it to that only.
There aren't many homes in Canada built specifically for multi-generational families, but that is changing. New tax credits are available to families who want to add a secondary suite for a multi-gen living situation.
The heavier care of my mom, I really saw how being connected outside was so important for her. And so there's lots of research around, it was so important to find a garden view so that she could be connected. You know, when you think of a basement suite,
Dark and dingy.
dark, dingy, small kitchen. So we really try to amplify it is a garden suite, and you'll really see why. When you go down into the suite, when you're in it, it's bright.
The older generation would be living down here, and their primary suite is at the front of the house on the main floor, and then their living space is down here, and there's a spare bedroom. And then the idea is that that primary suite on the main floor is also the aging in place suite, so that they don't need to then relocate through the house.
Yeah, it's kind of you kind of have to live here a little bit to know where you're going, huh?
Yeah, there's a certain complexity to it. This house, we've learned so much in working with these clients specifically, but it's really just the beginning of what we're able to offer potential future clients. And so I think that's where the successful outcome in this project really is, to allow multiple generations of people to live under the same roof, harmoniously, each with their own sense of territory. And I think that is the true success of what we've been able to accomplish here.
But there are simple things. If you're going to change the floor, do a non-slip floor. Get a stove that has knobs in the front, not something where you have to lean over.
That's a good tip.
We're on a mission to find out all about housing as we age. We've seen how one family has constructed a home for multiple generations to live under one roof. But that solution won't work for everyone. Romana Kaptan is Chief Advocacy and Communications Officer for CARP in Western Canada.
And I want to ask her, what about seniors that don't have families?
Hey,
Hey,
Carmen!
Ramona.
How
Goodness,
lovely
it's
to
been
see
forever.
you. It's been a very long time.
So you have worked a lot in this sector.
Yes, indeed, I have. I've been with CARP for more than 10 years now,
Yeah.
and I've just been appointed the BC Chief Advocacy and Communications
Congratulations,
Officer.
I
which is
know.
lovely. Thank you.
Tell me more a little bit about CARP's involvement with multi-generational living. Like, what's the stand?
Okay, well, CARP did a survey, and we found out that 85 to 95% of people wanted to age in place. Most people want to stay where they are.
Well, tell me how CARP feels about multi-generational living. Is that something that you see?
Unfortunately, not as much as I would like to. It's a cultural thing. You know, Norway, Sweden, Netherlands, the Indian community, they all live together.
I like having my family around.
Yes.
I would wish for that. So I always think, well, I'll just go and retire in Spain. But then I have to live with my dad, and I don't know how that's going to work out.
I'm sure your dad's wonderful. Look at, he raised you.
But I'm so used to being on my own.
Yes.
Doing as I wish, you know. So when you come into a multi-generational living arrangement, you have to be prepared to adapt.
You certainly do, because you know, sometimes the kids don't want to listen to mom. They don't want to listen to dad. They don't want to be bossed around. You know, you're not the boss of me anymore. But there are simple things. If you're going to change the floor, Do a non-slip floor. Get a stove that has knobs in the front, not something where you have to lean over.
It's a good tip.
And get a fridge where the freezer's on the bottom. There are so many things that you can plan for.
My aunt, suddenly her husband was in a wheelchair, and they had built this house themselves. And the primary bathroom, they couldn't get a wheelchair in because the frame was too small.
Exactly.
Something as simple as that. Every other door is huge. But not that one. And that's the one they really needed.
I have a fine example. In 2013, I needed a hip replacement. What happened is I had a bathtub in my main bathroom. Now, when you have a hip replacement and you have to go over this huge lip, it's very, very difficult unless you have help. But now, believe it or not, there is a solution. You can have that bathtub, you can have a piece cut out.
Oh, that's clever. I hadn't seen that.
So you don't have to lift your leg.
Now, what about roommate situations where a bunch of...
Oh, I love that idea. Of course, the Golden Girls.
I like that show.
Yeah. When I was back in Toronto, I had a whole group of girlfriends before I came out to BC. Well, I still have them, but we always used to talk about how we would get a great big house and we would all live together.
Well, I could still do that. It's not a jail.
Exactly.
Right? Everybody comes in with their own independent thought, but we just, at least you wouldn't be aging alone.
Yes, and that's really, really important. It really is, because being isolated, that's when, you get lonely, you dwell on the past, and you really need human connection.
Yeah. Thank you, Romana. So much to talk about, isn't there?
There absolutely
I think we should just keep walking a little. Do you have time?
Let's do it.
I would be a Golden Girl with you.
Great.
I think that would be fun.
Good.
Ramona and I aren't the only Golden Girls. In Port Perry, Ontario, 3 Zoomers decided to get together and share a home. Videographer Darren Maharaj went to meet these new roommates.
Say hello to Louise, Martha, Sandy, and Beverly, who's currently relaxing at her timeshare in Florida. Together they make up Port Perry, Ontario's very own version of the Golden Girls.
Hi. Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Your heart is true. You're a pal and a confidant.
By moving in together to share expenses and good times, these retirees have been able to age gracefully in this large 3,400 square foot home with all the extras, including an elevator.
Yeah, sure, let's go for a ride.
Ramped porch, deeper stairwell treads, and wider doorways.
It was probably the most economical way of aging, being able to share on the cost of services, quite a number of things. And companionship, because loneliness is one of the real key issues for aging people.
So you're saying it would cost $100,000 a year?
Yes.
To stay in a retirement home?
Yes, and you completely eliminate, in many cases, the equity that you had in your home and your savings. And so our retirement homes have told us that they have 2 very difficult times. One is when they say nobody has enough money to come in, and the other is your money's run out, you've lived too long.
My favorite thing is the fact that both my boys, my siblings, they're happy too. They know that I'm safe, and that if anything happens, somebody might come to my rescue.
The girls have even created a website for others interested in learning about home sharing. You can check it out at 100perrystreet.ca.
When we come back, we're going to take a look at something that many people dream of, but few can achieve: rural retirement living.
I stopped just to stretch my legs on the way to Vancouver, and I never decided to be here, and I never left.
When we dream of retiring to the country, we think of wide open spaces and big country houses. But one Zoomer is living his rural retirement dream in a tiny home. Videographer Dean Outwall went to find out more.
What can we refer to you as?
I think you can refer to me as retired.
Retired, revitalized, refreshed, reinvigorated. All
Oh,
of the above.
all of that, yes.
You are. After being contracted to design tiny homes for those without permanent addresses, Zoomer Peter Matheson decided to take the step and live in this tiny home himself, right here in Grand Forks, British Columbia.
I intended to live in it for a short time before using it as a prototype for what we could do for others. And about halfway through the build, I was looking at it and saying, I like this. I could live in this, and
you did?
And I ended up doing that, yeah. I lived there for about 4 or 5 years, right on the river, gorgeous spot, and really loved it. The person who bought this has some physical challenges, so I made this big ramp, which makes it a lot easier. So it's just been moved here. This is all the solar panels and generator and all that stuff for its off-grid use. This is a composting toilet, and then the shower here. That's the heat pump, so it's air conditioning and heat. The only difference right now from when I had it is that there's not a whole bunch of books and stuff here, and the fridge, I had a chest freezer, but that has a freezer and is more convenient.
I'm imagining back in the day you had several houses, big houses, and you've gone to this, I mean, what's the square footage of that tiny place?
125 square feet.
That is a shed. And you said it was on wheels.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm a social person. When I love hosting. How was that happening in a 125 square foot home?
Surprisingly, it worked well. Obviously, the bed, and when I had company, this would be my living room. All of the wood here is locally harvested and planed.
Quite a lifestyle change. I mean, big agencies you were working for, the advertising marketing agencies.
Uh-huh.
So how did that switch come about?
As I was coming back to Vancouver at loose ends, I stopped to visit a friend that lived here that had recently bought a little farm here. Stopped for just to stretch my legs on the way to Vancouver, and yeah, I never decided to be here and I never left. I think our measures of success is the toys we've got and the house we've got and the car we've got and all that stuff. And that really limits what we can do with our lives.
Well, we're almost done with the show, but before we go, we have to visit with our friend Chef Julian Bond. He's back in the kitchen sharing recipes that are nutritious, affordable, and Zoomer friendly.
The spaghetti squash, green beans, beautiful vegetables, and the star of our show, the spot prawns. Hi, I'm Chef Julian Bond. Come with me while I show you a few shopping hacks to save some money. Squash. We see them in the store all the time. A mass selection from acorn squash, kombucha squash, butternut squash. But you know what my favorite is of all time? Is the spaghetti squash. It's so easy to cook. Don't be intimidated by it. And weigh your squash. As you take two squash together, the difference is only water. Nutritionally, they're exactly the same, but you're gonna get a better bang for your buck. This makes me really happy when I see something like this, and that's our BC Spot Prawns. This is something you see in restaurants that you can now buy here in your own grocery store. And if you don't know about BC Spot Prawn, it is one of the most sustainable prawns you can buy. Yes, it's frozen because that's the best way to preserve our prawns, in a little salt water throughout the year. Beautiful. When it comes to things like spot prawns, people always ask, how do you cook them, Julian? Well, it's really easy. You're going to take a bowl, put your prawns in the bowl, and take hot water. You pour right over your prawn tails. That takes about 4 to 5 minutes, and that's it. Haricot vert, green beans, they look scary and everybody overcooks them. Here's the deal, you're gonna grab your green bean, take off the top, and that's ready. And you're gonna pop those in boiling salted water 47 seconds. As soon as it's done, you're gonna plunk them into ice water. That way we protect that beautiful green color. Spaghetti squash. And all you're gonna do is take a spoon and you're gonna scrape out all your seeds. And so it looks like this one. And then to cook it, take a little bit of olive oil. You're gonna take some salt and some pepper. and you're gonna cook them face down, 375 degrees for about 35 to 40 minutes. I'm going to add butter. We're gonna add some Parmesan, and I'm gonna grate. And all I'm gonna do is take it, empty the entire container right into my bowl. By adding the spaghetti squash to our plate, it really extends the use so we don't have to use too many prawns. Haricot vert, beautiful vegetables. I just put it on the grill just to heat them through. And the star of our show, the Spot Prawns. Enjoy.
Any home we want to age in will likely need some renovations, like stair lifts or elevators, wider door frames for wheelchairs and walkers, extra bedrooms for home care services, and more. We want to hear from you. Can your current home accommodate some of these changes, or will you need to move to a location that will support you aging in place? Let's hope that more developments are created by the time we need them. And that's the show. Remember, as our CARP president Moses Neimer always says, the best way to keep going is to keep going. So Carpe Diem and seize your day.